President Tinubu pledged his support to Borno State amidst Boko Haram attacks.
The President has given me assurance that they will do everything possible to control the situation.
President Tinubu heads to Lagos for Ecowas at 50 celebrations and project commissioning.
PDP faults secretariat ceiling, vows legal and political action.
This is unacceptable. We condemn it, and we will make sure that they will have us to contend.
And good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall focus on the Economic Community of West African States, Ecowas, at 50.
The heads of states and governments of 15 West African countries established the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, when they signed the ECOWAS Treaty on the 28th of May 1975 in Lagos, Nigeria, to promote economic integration and cooperation.
Ademola, and from 15 to 12 member states of ECOWAS, comprising of Benin, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, and of course Guinea-Bissau. Must also mention Liberia, Nigeria, of course, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and Togo, with headquarters in Abuja, Nigeria.
Yeah, right, Yere. ECOWAS was set up to foster the ideal of collective self-sufficiency for its member states. As a trading union, it is also meant to create a single large trading bloc through economic cooperation.
Key fundamentals of ECOWAS principles include equality and interdependence of member states, solidarity and collective self-reliance, and non-aggression between member states.
ECOWAS' vision is a borderless region where the population has access to its abundant resources and is able to exploit them through the creation of opportunities under a sustainable environment. In addition, raise the living standard of its people, enhance economic stability, and foster relations.
Sadly, on 28th January 2024, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso issued a statement announcing their immediate withdrawal from ECOWAS to form a new regional bloc called the Sahel States.
As ECOWAS roll out the drums to celebrate its 50th anniversary, the regional body has every reason to celebrate its evolvement from a modest economic cooperation framework into a dynamic and multifaceted regional bloc. I am Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to Good Morning, Nigeria.
Are you sure ECOWAS has so many reasons to celebrate?
Well, there is.
Okay, we'll find out and see, some of the shortcomings in the last 50 years. I'm Yanri John. Thank you for joining us right here on the network service of the NTA. We're live at our headquarters in Abuja. This is Africa's largest TV network. And like we always say, you can't beat the rich. All right, so much in store for you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. This super review, of course, will be coming your way much later when Chukwudi Okoli Ogbaja joins us. But for now, we have, if you like, the rebranded, looking beautiful, smashing this morning, our own Sawa, Khalil Ibrahim. Good to see you, Sawa, after a long holiday. How are you doing?
It is indeed. Many thanks. Thank you. And Demola, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, President Bola Tinubu has restated his administration's determination to tackle insecurity in the northeast and other parts of the country. This commitment was underscored during a crucial meeting with Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, who briefed the president on the recent surge in Boko Haram attacks in the region. Governor Zulum, who had just visited the affected communities, expressed optimism that the federal government's current strategic decisions will will effectively curb the resurgence of insurgency. In response, President Tinubu reaffirmed his directive to security chiefs to deepen collaboration with state government, ensuring a unified approach to tackling the crisis. He assured Governor Zulum of sustained federal support to halt terrorist advances and restore stability in the region.
That they will do everything possible to control the situation, and I believe the federal government will do something.
Still from the seat of power, the president has shifted base to Lagos for key regional and developmental engagements. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has departed for Lagos, where he will lead celebrations marking the 50th anniversary of Ecowas and commission key national infrastructure project. As the region commemorates these milestones, the president's participation underscores Nigeria's commitment to regional integration and development. The president is expected to deliver a keynote address at the main event and participate in other high-profile engagements in the city, including the commissioning of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway Section 1 and the Lekki Deep-Sea Port. Meanwhile, the political atmosphere in Abuja is tense as the main opposition party speaks out on recent developments at its headquarters. The People's Democratic Party is describing the sealing of its national secretariat as an undemocratic act that it intends to challenge legally and politically. This formed part of resolutions from the PDP National Caucus meeting held in Abuja. Party leaders condemn what they call the infringement on democratic space, emphasizing the need to protect institutional independence. The caucus resolved to engage relevant authorities and seek redress through all lawful means. The party maintains that political opposition must be respected in any thriving democracy.
To contend.
On the legislative front, a controversial electoral bill has just been withdrawn by its sponsors in response to public sentiment. Speaking of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abbas Tajuddin, has withdrawn the controversial compulsory voting bill after consultations with key stakeholders. The bill, which had passed a second reading, sought to amend the Electoral Act to make voting mandatory. It sparked national debate on citizens' rights and electoral reform. Speaker Tajuddin Abbas clarified that the proposal was made in good faith to boost voter turnout. However, in deference to public sentiment and democratic freedoms, he now favors strategies that encourage participation through civic awareness rather than compulsion. And from the legislation to policy reforms, Nigeria's Vice President is pushing for stronger institutional structures to drive effective governance. Vice President Kashim Shettima is calling for sweeping institutional reforms to address Nigeria's persistent policy implementation challenges. He made the call during the presentation of the draft National Public Policy Development and Management Framework by the Special Advisor to the President on Policy and Coordination, Hadiza Bala Usman. The Vice President said effective governance must be anchored on structured policies and frameworks. The proposed framework is expected to improve coherence and coordination across ministries, departments, and agencies.
As strong institutions.
And now to a spiritual reminder for Muslims. Nigeria's religious leaders have made a significant announcement ahead of the Hajj season. Muslims across Nigeria have been urged to look out for the crescent of the Hijjah 1446 after Hijrah on Tuesday, 27th May, marking the beginning of the Hajj season. The Sultan of Sokoto and President General of the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar, issued the directive through a statement by the chairman of the Advisory Committee on Religious Affairs, Professor Sambo Wali Junaidu. Muslims are to report any sightings to their nearest traditional leaders for onward communication to the Sultan. The crescent appearance signifies the approach of Eid al-Adha and the annual pilgrimage rite in Islam. And these are the news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ademola and Yenri after this time out.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We bet solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than destination.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma-oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma-oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance Oil. Good food, no worries.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
Emeka, you come into my home and you see me and my family enjoying our golden morn, and you still proceed to talk about business.
Emma, it is very, very serious.
Yes, so there is serious news. Introducing the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 with milk already inside for your creamy, nutritious enjoyment. Get the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 for your family.
From Nestle.
The world needs mums. With a splash of Golden Terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra oil, or pure love.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Exactly. One Supermalt after breakfast daily keeps us at our best.
Supermalt is specially formulated for today's man and woman. It has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
Fueling your vitality the whole day through. Embrace each challenge with renewed might. With Supermalt, your performance takes flight. Supermalt,
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita. Prepare them to win every day.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. Ọ̀nà mi ní àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀. Mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀. Mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ̀. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí dé bá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. It's now time for newspaper review.
We have Chukwudi Okoli Ogbaja with us again this Tuesday, and it's a pleasure to have him. Many thanks for joining us, Chukwudi.
I like your near husky voice. It doesn't quite get to the CNA All Brown category, but it stands you out. Hello.
Thank you very much.
Band boy. You're pressing us with band A because me and the Jumaide band Z. Demo.
You're welcome.
How you doing?
Good morning.
All right, let's see what the papers have this morning. We'll begin with the Daily Times newspaper. The Daily Times leads with Tinubu intervenes, grants 14-day reprieve to FCT ground rent defaulters. All right, and that's on page 2. Above the masthead, Saudi authorities bar Sheikh Gumi from 2025 Hajj, the port's cleric, back to Nigeria. That's an interesting read. Page 2 will guide you. PDP neck meeting uncertain as party condemns sealing of secretariat. That's on page 11. And of course, looking below the picture story this morning, we have Tinubu presents APC flag to Ukachukwu Ekwenife. And that's on page 9. Naimet DG Anosike elected president of Ecowas Meteorological Committee. Police rescue kidnapped octogenarian, neutralized 6, arrest 12 kidnappers. That's on page 5. Just beside that, we have court jails 4 internet fraudsters in Lagos. In the red strip, we have 2027. That's the kicker. Labour Party not celebrating Obi's declaration, says presidential ticket open. All right, the race to 2027, of course, has began fully, and that's on page 11. Let's look away from the Daily Times now and see what this Nigeria is offering. This Nigeria leads with insecurity, and that's the kicker. Rise up and defend us. Zulum charters military. The riders, Borno governor, meets with president, vows not to allow Boko Haram as well control any local government area. Just beside the masthead this morning on This Nigeria, we have alleged 4 billion naira fraud. Judges' suspension stalls the FCC's case against ex-governor Obiano. All right, beside the picture story, we have ground rent in the intervenes. FCT gives a 14-day extension to the porters. Below that, of course, the story of the deportation of an Islamic cleric is also here. Talking about the Islamic cleric, that's Gumi. And the reason cited here says political views. That's on page 6. All right. Below the picture story, we have reps withdraw compulsory voting bill. Speaker Abbas says the withdrawal was made following extensive consultations with a broad spectrum of stakeholders. And that's all of that is on page 6. All right. So, Demola, what do you have?
Yeah, I have the leadership newspaper with me here. And just above that nameplate, Tinubu ordered leaders to mark Ecowas 50th anniversary. Details on page 19. 2027, no automatic ticket for you. LP tells Obi. Details can be gotten from page 4. Then we have Nigeria target $7 million daily revenue from fertilizer exports. Details of that story can be found on page 7. Then we have ground rent. Tinubu stops takeover of PDP headquarters. 4,793 orders. Details can be found on page 7 as well. Suspected suicide bomber killed in Abuja explosion. How military stopped terrorist. 2 persons sustained injury from 6 suicide bomber. Situation under control. Army, police commence forensic analysis. Details of that headline story can be found on page 4. Speaker Abbas withdraws compulsory voting bill. Details on page 4. Why Saudi deported me. Sheikh Gumi. Details on page 17. Zulum vows to resist insurgents' takeover of local governments. Details can be found on page 17. Kano Mosque are sentenced to die by hanging. Details on page 17. The front page picture is that of the PDP Secretariat sealed off as the Federal Capital Territory Administration Enforcement Team took possession of the property over non-payment of ground rent. Then the Blueprint newspaper, we have 24 hours after quick notice, elders killed over 20 in Benue communities. Details on page 14. Let's just go straight to Tinubu wades in as FCTA seals PDP Secretariat. Then we have suspected suicide bomber killed in failed attack on Mogadishu cantonment. Then Abbas bows to pressure, withdraws compulsory voting bill. Sultan urges Muslim to look for moon, and oil prices rise as Trump extend EU tariff deadline. Federal government inaugurates committee to dispose Emefiele's 753 unit estate. Kano Mosque fire, man sentenced to death for killing 23 worshippers. Chooks.
I always like to start my day on a very happy note. But when you threw in 24 hours after quick notice, herders kill how many people?
Killed 20 in Benue.
So the question I ask is this: is there security in these troubled parts of Benue? That's a question I am not posing to particular individuals. That's a question I am posing to conscience. We have to have a conscience in this country. Certain things do not make any meaning at all. But some people know certain things and are looking the other way. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. Zulum spoke up just the other day, accusing politicians and soldiers of aiding and abetting insurgency. So it's not just a journalist talking, but let men have a conscience. God they Lucas, God they, that's actually my name. Talking about Zulum, he says, it's my star. He says not one local government will be ceded to Boko Haram or ISWAP. And I say, my dear, Zulum is speaking again. Now, Zulum does not command a platoon, neither does he command a battalion. But he's a civilian. I'm not going to put a B-L-O-O-D-Y before his name because he's indeed talking like a man who means business. And it's easy to know why Zulum says some of the things he says. If there's a person using his security vote, it is that man. Sometimes I tell myself, the man is not really a politician. He is somebody who believes in a job he's gone there to do. Yeah.
He's serving the people.
He's serving the people. The way in those days that technocrats will come into government and serve. Somebody said the other time that one of the things Obi did was that some people served in this government and after they left back to what they were doing. Nigeria was like that. Now, who is it? Eno, the one you challenged me about the other day. Saying that
Eno, Akwa Ibom.
Go Akwa Ibom. If you don't follow me to whatever. We were not like that.
He was talking about political appointees.
Appointees, okay.
Yes.
Political appointees.
Not
very
not
important.
civil servants.
No.
Political appointees. That's what he
No,
said.
we are still saying the same thing.
Yes.
There are appointees in those days that were apolitical, yet they worked with politicians. Very important that we make that point. Everybody must not become partisan because they want to serve their people. You will be banishing good men from governance unwittingly. Let us think about certain things we say and do. Zulum is a star anytime. May God bless him as he vows that no local government area will be taken.
Amen.
Yes, he's a great
should
man.
Pray for him.
Yes.
Amen.
This suspected suicide bomber killed in the Abuja explosion. Yeah, and you say no, not again. After the Nyanya incident, after the Christmas Day bombing and all that, you want to say no. For two good reasons. The first one is because life is involved. That's the first reason. The second one is that you cannot afford a situation where an investment-seeking nation allows its capital to be embarrassed by such explosions. That does not bring the investor in. But the most important thing is save lives. That's why one feels so bad. What is happening in Borno, what is happening in Plateau, what is happening in Benue and the rest of it. These are our fellow Nigerians. In the seeming comfort of Abuja, we keep on reading about carnage on our brothers in the hinterland, brothers and sisters. That's not fair. It is just not right. Yes. Are you posting anything, or do I just bring in more from my own?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Good. You didn't read this. Okay, you did. Saudi Arabia says Gumi is not going to perform the Hajj, in spite of the fact that he's been cleared and all that. Now, one of the things, because I am one of those who believe in demystifying the things that Nigerians, out of ignorance, mystify. Saudi Arabia is a Muslim country, isn't it? Gumi is a Muslim, isn't it?
A cleric.
Fine. That's a point to make. Because here they're all Muslims and ignorance rules the day. Now, Gumi is saying that it's probably because of his political views. Gumi does say certain things that make you, say, oh, really? And you want to say, maybe disagree or agree with him. But if I remember, was it the father? I think that was the father. He, at a point, was a sage in the sense that he said things that affected humanity, not necessarily Muslims alone. When I read the Credo of Being and Nothingness by Wole Soyinka, it's a pamphlet. He actually quoted Gumi, I think is the father, who said there that till you come to know you're nothing, you're not ever going to become anything.
Something.
If you want to become something in life, make yourself nothing, so that you don't begin to carry your shoulders up for band boy, and maybe even my dear Nyere. Then watch Providence make you something. These are people who helped us shape up thinking about this country when I was a young journalist. Where are Nigeria now? Where are the statesmen? And all that. It's just unfortunate.
I can say that in the House of Reps we still have statesmen there. Well, with this, I thought you were going to mention the withdrawal of the compulsory voting bill.
That's a good thing you popped up.
Yes.
Yes,
Fantastic one.
I have it here.
Yeah, it shows that they're listening. I mean,
I'm a journalist. Sometimes the cup has to be half empty of water because I am taught natural cynicism to make a point. The one way with the register before, when compulsory voting no day, we don't feel manage them well. And we're thinking about making voting compulsory. The deluge, who's going to manage it? Did they think about that? But again, does it not infringe on rights?
Rights,
because that's the final point.
Yeah.
But for me, however cynical it sounds, the 35% or 40% that turns out, have we been able to manage them properly?
We will in 2027.
Well,
be
Chooks,
hopeful.
You've made your points. Thank you. Thank you.
As a journalist.
Thank you. You've made your point.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow again.
Thank you.
All right. We draw the curtain on newspaper review here. The conversation will kick off when we come back. Stay with us.
Pleased to announce encouraging news from the National Bureau of Statistics, which released the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for April 2025 only yesterday. According to the report, the headline inflation rate for April stood at 23.71%, This represents a decrease of 0.52% from the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. Similarly, month-on-month inflation dropped by a notable 2.04% from 3.90% in March to 1.86% in April. This, of course, did not just happen by chance. The president is focused and is determined, and his determination and his interventions are clearly paying off. The benefits of reform, though gradual, are real and measurable.
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, Peace and progress is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
I want to play!
Survey says. If my phone rings at 2 a.m., it's probably my mom.
An emergency.
Landlord.
Achaluko. I will give you 1.5 million. After you smile finish, I will add extra 1.5 million just for you to move around. I will not add extra 2 million naira. Just for you to call me Odogu.
Family Feud Nigeria Season 3 is officially live.
At NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
Thanks for staying with us. You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Just before we bring in our guest for our conversation on Ecowas at 50, let's take this background report by Ibrahim Dan Hamidu.
50 years ago, the winds of hope swept through West Africa. On May 28, 1975, the leaders of 15 countries signed the Lagos Treaty, birthing the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, with a bold vision to unite the region through trade, cooperation, and collective prosperity. Today, ECOWAS stands as a 12-member bloc headquartered in Abuja, Nigeria. After Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, once key members, withdrew to form a new alliance. Yet, despite internal shocks, the ECOWAS mission remains intact. Economic integration, peace, and the ideal of a borderless region where people and goods move freely. The core principles of ECOWAS, which are equality, non-aggression, interdependence, and solidarity, have underpinned its work. From regional infrastructure to free movement protocols, and even peacekeeping interventions in times of conflict. Over the decades, ECOWAS has grown from just a trading bloc into a dynamic political force, responding to coups, championing democracy, and pushing for stability. Its vision, 2050, is ambitious: a peaceful, prosperous, and inclusive West Africa driven by its own people. But challenges linger: political unrest, insecurity, and now internal fragmentation test its strength. As the regional body marks its golden jubilee, experts in regional integration, diplomacy, and ECOWAS affairs are asking, what next? Can ECOWAS reinvent itself for the next 50 years? That's the big conversation this morning, and it starts right here on Good Morning Nigeria.
Many thanks, Ibrahim Dan Hamidu, for that background report on ECOWAS at 50. Now time to get into the conversation, and we have seated with us right here in the studio to discuss this topic, ECOWAS at 50. First, let me introduce Professor Jibril Ibrahim, a Senior Fellow, Center for Democracy and Development. Many thanks for joining us, Prof.
Thank you.
All right. Also here is Mr. Kapep Dabagat. He's a civil society expert and international affairs analyst. Many thanks, Mr. Dabagat, for being our guest again today.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa. Is the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. Ambassador, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, we can just kickstart our conversation by finding out from Professor Jibril Ibrahim. Let's look at the objectives for setting up the Ecowas in 1975. Do you think the objective actually has been met?
Well, the main objective was the economic integration of the entire West African zone so that we change the reality of our international trade being oriented externally to out of Africa. In a sense, that hasn't been met, and it's still an ongoing challenge that ECOWAS has been working on. And with the recent decision of the African Union to generalize this objective to the entire continent, there's a new impetus in that direction. Nonetheless, I think ECOWAS achieved a lot of other key objectives that it set out to achieve. And I think one of the most surprising achievements of ECOWAS, remember it was set up in 1975 when all the countries in West Africa were either military regimes or single-party regimes. But ECOWAS was able to change its normative system completely, promote democracy, and up till 2-3 years ago, the entire West African countries were running democratic systems. So I think that's one key achievement that ECOWAS had. But over that period, I think ECOWAS had been a shining light in terms of regional integration. It was the first regional organization in Africa to introduce the idea of free movement of goods and persons, and is still the leading one in that regard. We West Africans could travel to any of the countries in the region, set up businesses, settle without problems at all. And I think that's a very important achievement of ECOWAS. But I think at the political level too, ECOWAS has been very successful in terms of addressing the numerous conflicts that had affected the region. The intervention of ECOWAS in countries such as Liberia, Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire were very important in bringing peace back to those countries that were torn by civil war. And I think the whole peace architecture of ECOWAS have been extremely successful in orienting West African countries away from conflict towards peaceful coexistence and conflict prevention. And I think these achievements are really important. We still have conflict in the zone, but we do now have a better capacity to address these conflicts that arise.
All right, many thanks, Prof, for your opening comments. Let's get to Mr. Dabagat now. Many people would disagree with Prof as to, whether ECOWAS has met its objectives or not. Of course, it would be very easy, for those against ECOWAS to quickly say, what about the 3 African states that have withdrawn, from it? But in your own perspective, how would you say ECOWAS has fared in the past 50 years?
Well, I may not be very different from Prof. However, I see, first of all, how the objectives of ECOWAS were defined in a different way. I see that the different objectives of ECOWAS, how we can couch it now, signifies an organization that raises up to face challenges. First of all, from the onset, it was economic integration, which brought the different countries together. In 1981, the treaty, the Lagos Plan of Action, brought now the thinking of the continental blocks into place, and ECOWAS again stepped up to take up the block for West Africa. Then again in 1991, when we had the Liberia and Sierra Leone civil wars, then again ECOWAS took on that challenge to introduce peace and security into, its objectives. And now we have another challenge, which is the exit of the 3 Sahelian countries, which for me, I don't see it as a complete exit. Perhaps it's just for the time being. It may just be a declaration of some sort of dispute. So, in a nutshell, I see ECOWAS as an evolving organization. Yes, there are a lot of areas where ECOWAS needs to step up, But by and large, I wouldn't say it has achieved. I would rather say it has made some level of progress, but a lot more needs to be done. For example, the ECOWAS, when you say ECOWAS, the idea is to see this as one institution, right? But first of all, you look at ECOWAS and you see it's a collection of institutions that really, to a very large extent, the effectiveness of that institutional arrangement calls to question. We have what looks like an executive, a judiciary, and a legislature. We have, for the executive, we can say the authority of heads of state with its bureaucracies, including the Commission, the Council of Ministers, and other organs of the ECOWAS. But you find out that it never gets itself to the point where it can take a decisively executive decision where there are issues on ground that needs to be addressed. Again, the ECOWAS Parliament doesn't have legislative function, only advisory whether to be taken or not. Again, what stands as the judiciary, which is the ECOWAS Court of Justice, again, their rulings are only advisory to the countries. So you find out that ECOWAS is, I would say, an institution in evolution, but the evolution has been quite slow, and we need, at this point, to accelerate that process. And what better opportunity for the 50 years anniversary of the ECOWAS to give the organization an impetus to look into areas where it can reform, real reforms that will bring about, a better organization, a more effective organization, a faster moving organization that can bring about real development in the region.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kopep, for your opening remarks there. ECOWAS is an evolving organization, but it's slow, right? All right, let's get to our guest via Zoom, Ambassador Musa now. We want to have your perspective on ECOWAS at 50. In particular, what significant achievement do you think ECOWAS has recorded, especially in promoting regional integration and economic development?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me, and I'm also happy, to see Professor Jibril Ibrahim, and others at the studio. He has been a very, very, very impactful analyst and activist as far as regional integration, not only in West Africa but on the continent, is concerned. So I'm very happy that you've been able to attract such very knowledgeable people and the civil society representative. What I will say right from the onset is that the fact that today Ecowas is being talked about not only in Lagos, where I am now, but at the level of the continent. In Europe, there are activities going on. In the Americas, there are issues happening. Tells you one thing, that ECOWAS as a brand has been a global peace setter as far as regional integration is concerned. That symbolism is very, very, very important as far as West Africa is concerned. We have established the brand, and like all institutions, whether the UN, the African Union and others, there will be bumps on the road, right? But ECOWAS has achieved a lot. The fact that they are talking about it today, everybody is talking about it today, is a sign of that. What has added spice to it is the unfortunate withdrawal of 3 of our founding member states, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, from the community, which I think ECOWAS is working assiduously to make sure that within the next few years, we come back together as a 15-member bloc and not a 12-member, bloc as we have today. If you are talking about achievement, I think Professor Jibrin and the other speaker have already highlighted the key, areas of it. What we want in Africa is a community of citizens. It is an ECOWAS of people that we are moving towards. And at the core of it is the fact that we should strengthen our traditional cross-border movement of our mothers, sisters, brothers, trading freely and others. And ECOWAS is an example globally, of that free movement that we are, talking about here. And I think that stands out as a key achievement. And like Professor Jibril said, ECOWAS was set up as an, a developmental, integration organization in 1975. But realities of the world, because ECOWAS was not created in a vacuum. It was created at the height of the Cold War, where you could never, talk about common political values, right? And then we had a period where by 2020 in West Africa, all member states, in our region had, undergone many structural reforms as far as political governance is concerned. And that was sparked by the experiences of the collapse of the Cold War, the end of the Cold War, and what happened in places like Liberia, Sierra Leone, and others. And ECOWAS had to reposition itself, had to reimagine itself. And that is why, we are talking about the institutional reforms that took place right from 1991, with the Declaration of Political Principles up till today, to the extent that all governments in West Africa were democratically elected by 2020. That itself is a major, major achievement for the region, and that giving, what has been happening on the rest of the continent, that was a major achievement. The downside that I would, talk about is the fact that we have not actually moved decisively towards an ECOWAS of people. In fact, ECOWAS is still very much dominated by, states, and other citizen action is very much required in order to, shift the narrative towards an Ecowas of the people, where West Africa, with about 60 to 70% of our population being young people with expectations and then, other aspirations, it is very, very important actually to strengthen, that aspect of it. And I think for me, that is where reimagining ECOWAS going forward, becomes critical for all of us. We need to make sure that ECOWAS is really a community and not an organization. We have the institutional framework, we have instruments, we have all that. What is lacking is to make sure that that democracy that we've been talking about is actually on good economic governance. That would at least lift our majority of our people out of poverty. For ECOWAS to be able to facilitate it, we know that the primary responsibility lies with member states, but ECOWAS has a responsibility to accompany them in that regard. And I think that is where I feel that the glass is half full as far as ECOWAS is concerned, but we are determined to move forward.
Abdel Musa, thank you so much for your opening comments. But I'd like to stay with you. You actually took, the thought out of my mind when you talked about making ECOWAS echoes of the people and, changing the economic fortunes of, the people in West Africa. But I would like you to talk about, the security of, the West African people, really. Would you say that ECOWAS has played its role, sufficiently in that regard?
Absolutely. Look, Dr. Jibrin spoke about it earlier on. In fact, what happened in Liberia in 1989, which continued into Sierra Leone, and later on spread to Cote d'Ivoire and others, was a cancer that would have destabilize the whole regional integration project. ECOWAS, even though an economic entity with rudimentary instruments, was able to go in to stabilize the regions. And that actually gave birth to the democratic rebirth of West Africa. So from that point of view, it was very important that ECOWAS was able to manage the post-Cold War fallout in Africa, where citizens were yearning for democracy, for representation against dictatorship. ECOWAS stood up and got counted. And then those who could not survive the shocks of the post-Cold War era, like Liberia and Sierra Leone, descended into outright crisis. And ECOWAS also, and here I must insist, led by Nigeria, in particular, because we remember the time of His Excellency General Babangida and others, J.J. Rawlings in Ghana, and, others, to stabilize the region, where Nigeria showed real leadership as our regional hegemon, in the region. What is happening today, and that was also sparked by the euphoria that followed the end of the Cold War, terrorism and violent extremism. That is what is defining the security environment of West Africa today. Terrorism, nobody can say that we have actually defeated terrorism. Terrorism has been there as a tactic for centuries. But what is happening in Africa, where terrorist organizations actually aim to occupy territory, overthrow government, and then impose their perverted version of Islam on people, and that has been the defining ethos of terrorism as we see it, whether it is the Boko Haram and its affiliates, whether it is Jenim in parts of West Africa, or the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara and others. This is the common thread. Control of resources. They have a military, they have all that. This is an asymmetric warfare where there is no, really any calculus that will tell you that we have come to the end of insecurity. But what I would say is that ECOWAS is actively looking at this, and one of the key agendas of ECOWAS going into the 51st year is to activate the ECOWAS standby force in its counter-terrorism mode in order to work closely with our brothers and sisters in the three countries that have withdrawn. Do not make a mistake. The epicenter of terrorism is in the Sahel. And the withdrawal of these three member states have made it doubly difficult in order to confront terrorism as an existential threat to the whole region. So efforts have been made, including a recent meeting in Bamako between the ECOWAS president and the three foreign ministers of the three countries, that listen, we do need to have a very hard split, and that terrorism threatens all of us. And it is very important that we develop modalities for cross-border collaboration in order to deal with it. Because today we see terrorism also threatening the coastal countries in the region. So that conversation is going on, and efforts are being made to activate the forces necessary to raise the counter-terrorism, fight to the jihadists, in the Sahel. So this is also where we are going, towards it. So in terms of security, yes, there was a major achievement in the 90s and all that allowed West Africa to survive as an entity. And then today we are confronted with another challenge, and that is terrorism and violent extremism. And we are working very, seriously to make sure that we do not allow terrorism to define the region.
Ambassador, for your extensive view on how ECOWAS is combating, terrorism in the region. Let's come back to the studio now, Prof. I still want you to talk about this issue of, security threats in the region, because it's really very worrisome. Probably because of the borderless border that we have, across the region. What lesson has learned from the past peacekeeping efforts, of the ECOWAS that can be applied, to this present situation that we are confronted with now?
I think a lot of people prefer to make the argument that these terrorists are coming from across the border. It's lazy thinking and has no basis. In fact, there are two factors that generate terrorism in our region. One is internal factors around alienation of parts of the national population related to the relationship between these alienated individuals and the state in which they belong to. The second factor is the international dimension, because there's an international franchise on jihadism, and that franchise has had a very high capacity to engage in both propaganda to convince people and recruitment of people into its rank to get into action. In Nigeria, we've had this problem for a long time, and we know how Boko Haram started. Our own scholars have studied its origins. The crisis about the negligence of the youth in Borno State at the time, and how certain people started reacting to bad governance, and how these people were subsequently influenced by international jihadis, that this is the path you can take to achieve this important political objective. So I think this complex situation, we need an approach in which each country in the region needs to improve its own governance, satisfy the welfare of its own citizens so that they will be comfortable with their own states and be good citizens who carry out their duties and obligations towards the state. That's really extremely important.
Just like what Ambassador said, making Ecowas the government of the people.
Exactly. It's really a key governance challenge. I think the second element of this thing is really educating people that their religion does not tell them to kill people who have done nothing to them, who have not done any wrong, who have not harmed them in any way. No religion allows that. So a lot of it is related to lack of proper understanding of their own religion. But meanwhile, I think there's the whole question of state capacity to now engage in that fight among these people who will not give up the fight. Because if you have a hardcore that's not ready to give up that fight, you have to be able to use state power to end that these activities that are being carried out. So I think it's quite important for us to take an approach that's national, but also an approach that's regional, as well as emphasizing religious education for people to understand that there is no basis in religion to just go and be killing people in the streets, killing people in their places of worship, bombing indiscriminately. It's totally against all core principles. And I think I'm quite glad with what Ambassador Musa was saying about the continued attempts by ECOWAS to engage these three countries that left the organization in January to maintain relationships, because there's a sense in which the greatest risk for West Africa is for these terrorist forces to take over these countries. You take a country like Burkina Faso, a significant percentage of Burkina territory is under the control of terrorists. I know there's a lot of good words going around about their nice captain and his nice uniforms and hand gloves, but the story behind it is that a lot of the Burkinabe territory is under the hands of terrorists, and at the end of the day, propaganda wouldn't be able to hide that. So getting them involved with the rest of the region and the rest of the world in seeking common solutions to combat terrorism, because we can see clearly how countries on the Atlantic coast, such as Ghana, such as Benin and Togo, are gradually being affected by the terrorism in the Sahel as they move some of their forces southwards towards the Atlantic coast. And that southward movement has to be stopped.
All right, many thanks, Prof. Talking about the security challenges, I'd like to get to Mr. Dabagat now. Of course, listening to Ambassador, listening to Prof, and of course, listening to you earlier, you talked about the fact that, ECOWAS has made progress, but you would not want to say it has achieved a lot. I mean, there are quite a number of challenges, which of course has been highlighted. Most significantly is the fact that the living standard, if you like, the life of the average African in these West African states have not really improved. And of course, with all the other issues as regards security. Speak about how external influences and interference is affecting ECOWAS from meeting its goal.
Thank you so much. Well, I would start from looking at, the economic basis for ECOWAS, the funding of ECOWAS. And I would say across Africa, ECOWAS is one of the institutions that shows its capacity to support itself more. It aims to have 90% of its funding from community levies, with perhaps only about 10% coming in through funding and other external contributions. And I would say so far ECOWAS has done quite well in that regard. So in terms of external influences, I wouldn't want to say it is a major factor, but throwing back to the, again, exit of the 3 countries, one of the points that they listed, I'm careful not to say excuse because I don't know the facts of it, but one of the things they listed was that ECOWAS was becoming a tool for external actors, to meddle in the region, which was one of the things they mentioned as their reason for exit. So I think more needs to be done in terms of looking into that, but having that as a reason itself should have ECOWAS thinking deep within to reflect on its mechanism, to see how it can, be much more situated within the interests of its people. And I've been very happy to have had ECOWAS talk about moving from an ECOWAS of states to an ECOWAS of people. And this has been a narrative that ECOWAS has raised, I think, since 2011. But the extent to which that has been committed to is also called to question. Why? Because there was a study that I came across last year about the perception of ECOWAS citizens as regards what ECOWAS means to them in life. And that study concluded that, it had 2 countries where they were the focus. One was Burkina Faso and the other was Gambia. And particularly it was around the times that ECOWAS intervened both in Gambia and in Burkina Faso. And the study concluded that citizens in ECOWAS from these 2 countries see ECOWAS more as an occupying force than as an institution meant to contribute to its own development. Now that is a serious indictment on ECOWAS, and it is a narrative that should send ECOWAS thinking, okay, how do we engage our citizens? So it's not so much about external influences, but so much about the gaps of engaging the citizens. And I'm happy that Ambassador Musa actually alluded to that by saying that those are some of the areas where the loopholes are.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Dabugat. You want to respond to
I was just going to say that, besides the citizenship issue, let's look at the issue of trade and investment now. Looking at the trade liberalization scheme, along the corridor. How has ECOWAS been able to facilitate trade, amongst its member states, especially investments amongst its member, and what have been the benefits?
Thank you. I think that, and I would want to cast my mind back to the opening statement that your colleague made about ECOWAS not really improving the economic lot of the people. I wouldn't want to agree with that. I would say when you compare issues of GDP, and most especially issues of living standards across the countries. That has improved compared to 1975.
When it started.
Yes, when it started. Let's say in Mali, for example, the per capita income was 59 thereabout dollars, but fast forward to now, it's $689.
But if you want to compare with other regional blocks, would you say ECOWAS has tried?
Well, for me, I'm talking about the real issues within the region. And I wouldn't want to compare with others. But, I mean, that's why initially I was cautious to say ECOWAS has made some progress. But, yeah, the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme has actually helped, to grow the GDP of these countries. But again, linking GDP with the standard of living is also another thing, because GDP growth does not necessarily translate into, real quality of life for people. It's talking more or less about the export, about the value of what the country produces. So I feel that has happened, and to some extent, the lives of the people has been a little bit better, but there are a lot of gaps, There are a lot of gaps in terms of how, for example, we take care of informal trade across the region. Go to the borders, you see a lot of women crossing with their wares to sell in border communities. I mean, I don't see ECOWAS having put in place a program, to sort of structure that process. These are some of the things that ECOWAS needs to be looking at going forward. Again, we see that our borders are very porous, so our countries cannot really be able to, have control over the trade, be able to set up tariffs, be able to, generate the required revenue that is required from there. That is one area. And then another area is the transport sector that will help with the smooth movement of goods and services across the region.
All right.
That is still poorly developed. So I feel that there is a lot of gap, even though it shows some indicator of progress, but going down to the people, it's very important for us to see that.
Okay.
There is a lot of gaps. We just want to also inform our viewers that you can contribute to this conversation by sending us text messages and on WhatsApp on the number that is displayed on your screen. Okay,
all right. Let's get to Ambassador Musa now. Listening to Mr. Dabaga talk about trade and investment. Many people who say that ECOWAS hasn't quite done well will talk about the fact that it's been unable to implement the single currency. Has been a major challenge in that regard. I want you to speak about that and also speak about how corruption and lack of transparency has affected ECOWAS. This last 50 years.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. In fact, talking about facilitating intra-regional trade, which is at a paltry 12%, compared with trade with outside the region, that's a major problem for the region, and I think we need to emphasize that. ECOWAS thought about that. That is why it put in place its trade liberalization scheme that has actually helped countries, even including those that have withdrawn from the ECOWAS member states, to have, what is the duty-free access of their goods into the other parts of the, region where products come from those countries. That free trade area within the region has actually brought up the economic well-being of virtually each member state. But the elephant in the room, is that whoever controls your currency controls your economy. That is number one. And In that respect, the Ecowas region and the Central Africa region are real victims, of external control of their currencies, particularly the franc CFA, where about 8 member states in Ecowas, up until the 3 withdrew, belong to that group, and it still persists up till today. And I will say that it has been one of the impediments to bringing, into reality the the common currency for West Africa, that is the ECO. And I think the emphasis today is towards that. Let's get our regional currency, and I think that that must be emphasized without end. That without that, it's going to be a major, major problem. The other factor, which I would mention, is retarding the progress of Africa, is that despite our multiple partnerships, that has happened. And today, with multipolarity, it is even more serious. Yes, you are not even talking about the Western countries. You are not talking about Russia, China, and the BRICS. You are talking about even small Middle Eastern Gulf states like Qatar, Kuwait, and others also becoming new colonizers of our economy. And within Africa itself, the tangle between Morocco and Algeria is also impacting the region's ability to really integrate economically. That is what we have today with multipolarity. It is actually the Cold War on steroids that we see in West Africa today. And we need to reposition ourselves to re-establish partnerships that are win-win. And at the base of that is that West Africa must add value to its products. We still remain the producers of raw materials, which at the end of the production chain, the value chain, West Africa gets less than 7% of the raw material, value when it is already processed. The rest goes to those who are in the, on the other side of the value chain, who do not produce the raw material. So industrialization is key as far as West Africa is concerned. And if we do not move that, taking advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the Equal Trade Liberalization Scheme, fortunately, the AFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, its headquarters in West Africa here. So we have to take advantage of that and also take advantage of multipolarity. We should not see multipolarity as a negative alone. There are positive sides. How do we benefit from it so that we move from the partnership based on production of and transfer of war machines, military equipment, to industrial equipment.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Musa. Sorry, we just need to bring in another guest in our studio in Lagos. That is talking about Ambassador Musa Nuhu, Nigeria's permanent representative to ECOWAS. Ambassador Nuhu, good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, viewers.
All right. So, okay. Thank you. I know that you've been listening to the conversation so far. It's ECOWAS at 50 that we are looking at, and we've talked about how the organization has evolved over the past 50 years, looking at the issue of peace and security in the region, and also the issue of citizen participation, especially the issue of good governance in the region as well. Let's have your perspective on Ecowas at 50. What is your perspective? How has the region fared so far?
Thank you very much. I missed the first part of your question, but on my perspective, I want to mention that so far, so good. ECOWAS, as a regional bloc, no doubt had witnessed some challenges, but as a regional economic community, West African countries have really did well in terms of deepening integration between our member states. If you look at the composition of West Africa, having a group of Anglophone countries with different background and working system, having Francophone and the Lusophone, all of us with different kinds of orientations, different kind of system of governance, but putting our differences aside to work together as a community, that no doubt is a big plus to the community. When you look at also what the organization has achieved so far, I'm sure the Commissioner Political Affairs, Peace and Security that has spoken before me must have made mention of so many achievements which the organization was able to achieve in the first 50 years regarding setting of institutions and mechanisms to entrench democracy in the region, response to peace and security. But when you look at other sectors, such as the issue of trade, the issue of investment, free movement of goods and services, the organization no doubt has responded to the needs of the citizens when it comes to the issue of free movement of goods and services. I think when you compare ECOWAS region with the other 5 regs in the region, where the West African sub-region was the first to be able to come up with a protocol on free movement. And with that, we have a visa-free regime whereby our citizens move freely into all the 15 countries, not only to enter those countries, but they also enjoy the right of establishment, whereby all citizens of West Africa have that right to live legally, legitimately in our member state. So with that, there is facilitation of people-to-people contact, whereby our citizens engage each other. And with that, we have the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, which is called the ETLS. The ETLS allow all companies that are registered under that scheme, West African companies, to sell their goods in our member state without paying any levy, custom duty, or what have you. And so far, we have over 5,000 companies registered under that scheme, with over 50,000 products that are registered. So we are not doing bad. Yes, of course, there are challenges, I know, even on that, because of challenges of issues like the infrastructure or what have you. But the companies that registered under that scheme are really utilizing it to have more market within the region. It's a big market, a huge market of about 450 million citizens. Now, when you look at the other sectors, ECOWAS is an organization that virtually deals with all sectoral issues. Be it health, be it education, be it communication, be it infrastructure, we all have regional policies that deal with such matters, and that is one good thing with the organization beyond what other regions have. If you are going to compare ECOWAS with other regional groups in the continent, they are far in terms of having in terms of harmonization of policies within the region, within the community. For instance, if you look at our health sector, because of what we call the West Africa Health Organization, and it is agencies like the Regional Center for Disease Control, which allow our health institutions to harmonize their policies. You recall that during the COVID-19, despite the fact that West Africa is one of the largest largest communities in the continent, but in terms of death mortality, in terms of even the prevalence of the disease, we were able to have more lower victims because we have an organization that is working effectively. We are able to harmonize our policies and respond to that pandemic as a community, not as individual countries. So that is very important. And if you look at the infrastructures also, in terms of infrastructure, the Ecowas infrastructure master plan is a plan that is based on respond to the community needs for infrastructure. It's not that Nigeria has its own roads or Nigeria is trying to do, or Ghana. No, we have what we call a regional master plan, whereby we look at critical infrastructures that the community needs. And the Ecowas is working with development partners, is working with member states to ensure that they are coming up with mechanisms of making sure they put this infrastructure.
There's a little glitch there with our connection with Ambassador Nuhu. We'll take a break. When we come back, hopefully that will be restored. And of course, our other guests are still with us. Stay with us.
Maliciously good, maliciously good. Whether it's your chips or sandwich, yam fries or jollof rice, salad, pasta or platter, they make it taste so nice. Now you all get the bomber, you all get the taste. Now I can tell you any day that everything
By maliciously good.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect. It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening. But that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves
to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
All right, welcome back. Many thanks for remaining with us. This is still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. Our guest is still very much with us, and we're talking about Ecowas at 50. And just before we get back to our guest to get some more perspective as to how Ecowas has fared and, of course, the journey ahead, let's take a look at some messages that we have already. By the way, you can send in your comments and questions. The number is on your screen, and we'll be glad to read them. We have quite a number. I'll just quickly take one. This one says, "Good morning, Nigeria. Bon anniversaire, ECOWAS. I'd like to appeal that ECOWAS should look into," well, this one's pending recruitment advertised last May 2024. Fehitola is the one sending this, and that's because I think he or she, is looking forward to that, recruitment exercise being concluded.
Okay, right. I have another one here. This one is from Jayola Monday. It says, ECOWAS has done well, but they can do better. But with the rising insecurity in the region, the body needs to be active and proactive about it. Prof, maybe you want to respond to that. To this, these comments by Jayola. He says, ECOWAS has done well, but they need to do better. But there is need, but with the rising insecurity in the region, the body needs to be active and proactive about it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for improvement for ECOWAS. But I think it's also important to know that they already have a structured program for improvement and reform. The Vision 2020 to 2050 of ECOWAS is ongoing, and within that, part of the tasks they define for themselves is for ECOWAS institutions to work better among themselves. And that's also the period within which they want to get to that transformative stage of the ECOWAS of the people. So I completely agree they need to improve. They are making efforts to improve. They are confronting challenges, but these are collective challenges. There's nothing as difficult as having a body of nations coming together and agreeing to make joint policies. Okay. Don't forget that the tradition of history is each state acts independently and no state has the right to interfere in how they are acting. One of the greatest revolutions that happened in ECOWAS was the revised Treaty of 1993, where the supranationality clause came in, and ECOWAS decided that, look, once they take a decision collectively, then it is binding on every member of the organization. I think that was a great progressive move, but it's also a move that had its own challenges. And if the three countries that left recently felt they had to leave, it was because the military had come back to power in this country. ECOWAS made it very clear to them that you cannot have military rule in West Africa of today, and I completely agree with that principle. And if the cost of challenging these countries to leave the normative system established by ECOWAS is for them to leave the organization, so be it. It's good that there are still efforts to try to reintegrate them back into the fold, and I think that's very possible. But the challenge is those military regimes must accept to return to the principles of multi-party democracy, because the ECOWAS of tomorrow, the ECOWAS of the people, must also be a democratic ECOWAS. You cannot have an ECOWAS of the people if authoritarianism remains your major political principle.
All right, many thanks, Prof. I'd like to get to Ambassador Musa now. We should be looking at, ways to deal with the challenges that ECOWAS has faced in the last 50 years, and how it intends to forge ahead. But I'd like to ask you, Ambassador Musa, what role you think globalization has played in the success, or if you like, the failures of ECOWAS in the last 50 years?
Thank you. Globalization is a phenomenon that nobody can escape. That is the first point that I would have to, make. And I think the revolution in technology, actually has benefited everybody. It has brought people closer together. And I would want to briefly refer to what Ambassador Nuhu, the Nigeria permanent representative, said, which is quite significant. That, look, if you go to the Southern Africa region, SADC, the South African Development Community, almost all the countries are Anglophone. You go to Central Africa region, the vast majority are Francophone, with one small Spanish and then another, country. West Africa is a mosaic of the entire colonial experience of Africa. We have, if you take even Togo and Benin, they have some German antecedents before even the French came in. Right? Then you have Lusophones, you have Anglophones, you have Francophones. And what ECOWAS has been trying to do is to transform all this into Afrophone. And that is a major, major achievement, also from the whole issue of globalization. Globalization has got its positive, aspects for the region. The downside of it is that the negative aspects of, say, technology and others also influence Africa in a way not, which is far worse than other countries just because of the low level of development. So if you have AI, artificial intelligence, coming here, and then terrorists are today flying drones in our regions and others, and, who are even becoming more powerful than the national armies and things like that. These are all the downside of globalization that we are talking about here. But the fact is that globalization also produces choices. That is the issue. And today's multipolarity, that is why Africa must go for win-win situations. How do we take advantage of what is happening, to make sure we move from the drawers of water and the hewers of wood to also producing the finished article for other markets. And that is where the future lies. And that is where our young people, who are a demographic dividend with 60, 70%, if we do not transform the economy, taking advantage of what the global processes have given us, we will move from a demographic, sort of dividend to a demographic nightmare in the region. And that is what we need to evade today. And that is where ECOWAS is striving, to make sure that we position ourselves, reimagine our region in terms of all this. And that is what is contained in the essence of the summit of the future that Ecowas is organizing a bottom-up approach of citizens' voices as to how all the axes of integration should actually be repositioned in order to meet the demands of today's world. So this is where we are going, and we hope, that with citizen support, with, company, we are very happy in West Africa that Dangote refineries today can be one of the biggest refineries in the world. It is a plus for Africa. These are the positive things we need to multiply, taking advantage of what the global environment has, actually the opportunities that they provide, while minimizing the negative consequences of globalization.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Musa. We should take advantage of our demographic size. Okay, let's move to Lagos studio, where we still have Ambassador Nuhu. And moving forward now, as we begin to wind out this conversation, what do you think should be the priority of ECOWAS? I mean, in the next years to come, maybe another 50 years, what should be the priorities of ECOWAS?
Thank you for that very important question. Well, ECOWAS already have a plan. They have a vision, objectives, which the organization is aspiring to achieve under a very good document, Vision 2050. And for me, perhaps the issue of peace and security is very important, because whatever the region want to achieve, unless we have a very stable West African region, it will be difficult. So the priority of the organization must get toward ensuring that we have a very peaceful and stabilized West Africa. And on that, the region was able to evolve an action plan, a regional action plan on fight against terrorism and other related insecurity issues. That plan is very comprehensive with 8 components that are very useful. Once implemented, they will be able to address most of these challenges of insecurity. And related to that, the head of state have taken a decision on how the organization will be able to transform it is what we call the regional peacekeeping operations that we usually have before, but now it's going to be transformed on fight against insecurity instead of only using it on peacekeeping. And the ESF is now going to be mobilized on fight against terrorism. So with that, we'll be able to collectively participate in addressing this issue, because there must be collaboration between the member states. No nation have the ability to fight terrorism alone. There must be that collaboration, especially because of the fact that these terrorists are highly mobile. Once they strike into one country, they move into the other. So there must be this effective collaboration between the member states. And the ECO standby force, once activated, will be able to respond to that. And one good issue also on that is we now try to take the initiative, take ownership of the process, and the head of state have directed for the ministers of finance to come up with mechanism. How do we be able to generate funds within, so that the region will take ownership of that operation, which is very key. Unlike before, which we rely more from funds from partners, which sometimes they don't come, and along the way, even if the region started such operations, they will have issues of funding. But now we are looking inwards to see how funds can be generated. Again, when you come to issues of economic-related issues, with the African Continental Free Trade, which is coming on, which has now, the implementation have started. What we have in the Ecowas, that is the ETLS, is even more deeper than the CFTA. So it's just to key in what the continent have, and with that, already ECOWAS have the same common external tariff, because we have the CET, which is almost all the member states have key into it. So we'll be into the CFTA as a bloc, and trying to also address some of the challenges and ensure that the private sector of the region are playing key role when it comes to economic integration. So this is very important. The private sector need to be given all the necessary ingredients to ensure that our governments are responding to their needs, so that they will key into the regional integration and play active role. Also, the women, youth, and children, they have to be involved. And I like what the commissioner who is with us today, Ambassador Fatah Musa, is very keen on for ECOWAS to have. It is what they call ECOSOC, the ECOWAS Social Cultural Council, which once it comes in, the civil society, the youth groups will now have, all the people will be carried along on our regional integration issues, which is very important. And once that come in, people will have a say in whatever programs, activities the organization is carrying out. That is very important.
Many thanks, Ambassador Nuhu. The future is looking bright for ECOWAS, from what you have said. And before we round up the conversation, I would like Professor right here in the studio to tell us the best practices that he thinks ECOWAS should adopt, from other regional organizations to improve its effectiveness. But that's when we're about rounding off. Right now, we'll quickly take a look at some messages that we have, from our viewers. There's one here that says ECOWAS has to entrench self-liberalization from neocolonialism, especially by World Bank and IMF. Post-colonialism in the region by France, and the current baits by China and the Middle East giants. Emirates, Saudi also calls for deeper reprisal. ECOWAS can industrialize by integrated plans harnessing our rich natural and human resources. I think you have a message from Liberia?
Yes, I have 4 messages here. This one is: ECOWAS has the potential to lead West Africa into a more stable and prosperous future, but only if it acts decisively, inclusively, and long-term vision. Now, this one says, good morning, ECOWAS, please. I'm Dr. Michael Etim Okon. Our drivers are complaining about driving license, that is in ECOWAS. The only one they are using from Nigeria to Gambia, Togo, and Burkina Faso are being rejected. Please, we need international driving license, not driving permit. Thanks. And please let our leaders do something about Nigeria. We are passing through stress before we get to our destination in French countries. And this one says, ECOWAS has the potential to lead West Africa into a more stable and prosperous future, but only if it acts decisively, inclusively, and with long-term vision. That's Husseini Abdurrahman, founder of Soft Fusion Tech. And this one is from Sierra Leone. It said, good morning, my name is Maurice Sise from Liberia, precisely Monrovia. Okay, Miss Monrovia. It said, ECOWAS countries should long understand that the West are not in our interest developmentally. It's time we wake up. I have never experienced 1 month stable electricity as a young man growing. Our leaders should now get away with fear of death. Let ECOWAS wake up, man.
Unfortunately, we do not have too much time. So I don't know if you can knock off the response in about a minute.
Yeah, I think maybe the key point I want to make is a change of attitude in terms of implementing policy objectives we've set for ourselves. One example, West Africa started talking about single currency before European Union. European Union has implemented its own long ago. We are still discussing how we'll do our own. Let's make sure in the next 2 years, as the current plan states, that we do have a common currency which will help with our original objective of economic integration, because once we have a common currency, then you promote trade much more easily among all your countries. I think that's really important. The second thing really is the key objective of a secure and peaceful West Africa.
Thank you very much. I think we'd have to, leave it at that point because of time. Mr. Dabugat?
Okay, I think my last point would be about democratization in the region. It needs to be deepened. Currently, I would say in my own words that we have civilian regimes, but the democratization is not deep enough. We have corruption, and democracy does not deliver the necessary development dividends. So,
all right, Ambassador Musa, it would be good to hear from you. 10 seconds.
Look, I am. Our main objective is to learn from the past in order to shape our way forward. I am so thrilled that the only surviving founding father of Ecowas in the person of General Yakubu Gowon is in Lagos over here. And all the other former heads of Ecowas are here. We need to listen to them, in order to move forward with what we are doing. And I think we'll get there.
So we'll get there. Thank you very much. That would be a fine way to leave the conversation. Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security at ECOWAS. It was a pleasure to have you again. And of course, congratulations to you and your team as you celebrate. Of course, we want to also appreciate Ambassador Musa Nuhu, address permanent representative to ECOWAS. Because of time, we couldn't take your final thoughts. But of course, we hope we'll have another conversation some other time. Of course, right here in the studio. Thank you very much, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Senior Fellow, Center for Democracy and Development. It was a pleasure to have you, and many thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kopep Dabugat, Civil Society Expert and International Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, too.
All right, it's been a fine conversation talking about ECOWAS at 50. So that's our package on Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. I'm Ian Ray John. Live locked on the NTA.
And I'm Ademola Ade. Thanks for joining us. See you again tomorrow.